out.
I've been an educator for most of my adult life, but heads of state, ministers of finance, and of course ministers of education, but especially heads of state and ministers of finance, who are the people I deal with, ask me all the time, what do I need to do to build a competitive economy that's based on greater and greater innovation? And then soon after that, because they also know that I was born in Korea, they ask me, how did Korea do it? So it's a question that is on everybody's mind. When I was president of Dartmouth College, I thought a lot about what is it that we're doing. Dartmouth is the #1 undergraduate teaching institution in the United States. And I kept asking, how do we know that's true? How do we know that we're #1? And if you look at the US News and World Report rankings, does anyone know what the #1 factor in determining your ranking in any given year is? Where you were ranked last year. #1 determinant. And mostly it's because it's so hard to know about things like rank and who's here and who's there. So it's what you were ranked before that determines where you were afterwards. Because I did these rankings every year. The presidents and provosts of all the universities in the United States do these rankings. And you're looking at literally thousands of universities, and there's just no way that you can know yourself the difference between #1 and number 40, or #1 and number 3. So it's very difficult to know. But then I asked more questions. Well, at Dartmouth, is it just that we're selecting really bright students and then sort of putting a stamp on their head and they're going out and they would have been successful before and they're going to be successful after? Are we really adding value? And I think all universities have to begin to ask that question. Dartmouth was an almost 300-year-old institution. People from all over the world used to come to the Ivy League presidents and say, we really want to build Ivy League institutions. How long will it take for us to build an Ivy League institution? And my good friend Rick Levin, who was president of Yale for 20 years, said, oh, about 300 years. And let me tell you, the Ivy League is a fundamentally unsustainable model in every way except that it actually sustains itself. We spend at Dartmouth about $120,000 per student to educate them. The charge is $55,000, but we discount it for just about everybody through scholarships so that they pay an average about $18,000 a year. So despite the fact that it's a private Ivy League institution, it's the least expensive college in New Hampshire. And the reason we can spend $120,000 and only charge net $20,000 is because the alumni are so dedicated to the school and frankly are so dedicated to ensuring that the reputation of the school stays high that they send us around on a regular basis $150 million a year at Dartmouth, and then in addition to that many tens of millions of dollars just to keep up. So from any reasonable economic perspective, the Ivy League schools are financially unsustainable, except that the alumni will always sustain them, right? And so you can't really copy that. Can you go to a country and say, alumni have never been giving to the college in big numbers, and we're going to change that? So if you can't change that, what are the better ways of doing it? I mean, I think the experiment here with Samsung is a very interesting one. Let me just give you another couple of pieces of data. So 80%, when I heard that 80% of high school graduates go to college. In Germany, it's about 40%. And in Switzerland, it's 25%. In Switzerland, 25% go to college, and the rest of the 75%, and my vice president, Cyril Mueller, is here, he's from Switzerland, 75% have the option of going into a partially government-funded apprenticeship. So the government pays half, and the company will pay half. Germany has very much focused on vocational technical training so that the vocational technical schools are just as prestigious as the universities. Right? And those two countries, I would say, are the two countries that have educational systems that are most appropriately tailored to the nature of their job market. Now, how do you move the system here? One of the most interesting experiments in higher education I've seen is President Michael Crow at Arizona State University. This is a public institution that literally admits people according to the makeup of the state, which is very high population of Native Americans, high population of Mexican Americans, and others from Latin America, who come in sometimes with limited English skills. And they do pre and post testing and have shown that they have a huge delta. In other words, a huge improvement in the overall performance of their students. Now, Michael is a guy who's just using every new technique pedagogically that he can find. And he critiques the Ivy League. I was raised in them and I believe in them deeply. But he calls Ivy League institutions status factories. And that all they're really doing is taking people who are kids who are smart, who would be successful no matter where they went, giving a status to them, and then sort of sending them out into the world. And of course they're successful, but they probably would have been anyway. Now I disagree with Michael. I disagree that that's all it is. But I think these are the kinds of conversations that every country has to have.